So I'm going to talk about the 7 ways to grow a business from a video game studio's perspective, because generally there are only 7 ways to grow a business. And I'm going to do it in a way, assuming a game has already been, so at least one game has been developed in your studio, okay? But I'm going to do it from 2 angles, which is sort of early stages gaming studio and then a more established studio. So, from an outline, the 7 ways to grow a business. The first one is to increase customer retention rate. The second one is increase leads generated. The third is increase prospect conversion. And the fourth is increase transaction value. The fifth one is going to be increase transaction frequency. And then the last 2, reduce cost of sales and reduce overheads. Now, I'm an accountant. This isn't really going to be about accountancy, so to speak. Everyone thinks accountants just do tax returns and annual accounts, but we actually do a lot more than that. So I'm approaching this with a kind of business coach, sort of strategic sort of outlook. Okay, so if we look at the first one, increase customer retention rate. So this is obviously keeping players engaged, which leads to a more sustained revenue over time and reducing the need for constant new customer acquisition. So from a sort of young studio point of view, a few ideas that might come to head. So obviously the first one is develop engaging content. That's naturally what everyone wants to do. But obviously it's easier said than done. But by focusing on creating captivating games, keep players coming back. One thing a young studio would probably be more able to do than perhaps a larger studio with less time to hand would be to really sort of engage on customer feedback and support, implementing some kind of feedback loop to improve the game based on player suggestions. You know, even if there's any in-game issues, I think that's sort of easy to do early on, but it builds relationships. And obviously then adds to the sort of retention rate. And then obviously community building. Now, fostering a community around your game through forums and social media. Pretty much every gaming studio does that. But it's a crowded space, so obviously you need to do it in the right way. So a more established studio would probably look at things like loyalty programs, introducing rewards, perhaps for long-term players, regular updates. Now, obviously I'm not going to a lot of this stuff is obvious to you, but I'm just putting it as kind of a generic kind of overview. Regular updates, so providing frequent updates, expansions to keep the content fresh. Personalised marketing, so that could be using whatever data you've got, and I'm a true believer in data. Like, data can really transform businesses, so you know, using that sort of the analytics from that to sort of tailor marketing campaigns to individual player preferences. So the second one in the list of 7 is increasing leads generated. So this is more about marketing now, okay? Now, I'm not a marketing expert by any means, but generally we're looking to expand potential customer base, which obviously increases opportunities for sales and market penetration. So a younger studio might be interested in doing things like, obviously, free demos. Pretty much every game has a demo these days, but it could be multiple demos, it could be beta versions to attract potential players. Social media campaigns, sort of leveraging the right social media channel for yourself, can be a very difficult one to sort of get right, but if you can get the right platform and use targeted advertising, that can really help sort of generate leads. And collaboration, so partnering with influencers and other game developers to reach a wider audience. A more established studio might look at things like email marketing, which apparently is still really popular, so perhaps a newsletter. I mean, I think I'd love a newsletter if it was a game I loved. Working on SEO on websites. I see a lot of gaming websites, I don't mean to cause offence by any of this, but sometimes they seem to lack a bit of presence. So, you know, a website is basically like a shop store, so obviously a lot of games do go through, other systems like Steam and so on, but your website is your gateway to attracting a lot of potential players. And then events and exhibitions like this, but thinking about maybe setting up your own expos and events. If you hire your own space out and then advertise, it doesn't always have to be a central one that someone else has organised. So if we're looking now at the third one, which is increased prospect conversion, this is more sales. Now, with games, obviously you don't sit in front of everyone who's going to buy a game. It's different for me. If I need to win a client, I've got to sit in front of them and try and persuade them to come on board. So it is different with gaming, but obviously you can still do things to improve how you generate sales, which is going beyond the marketing aspect. So turning more leads into paying customers, boosting revenue with additional marketing costs. So a younger studio really does need to work on its value position, make sure it's very clear, communicate the unique selling points of your game effectively. There's a lot of games in the world, and there's a lot of attention to grab, but we live in this era of sort of short attention spans, so it's easy to miss the boat. But if you can work on your sort of value position, you will do well. Also, just making the purchase process just really simple and easy. I know it goes without saying, but just actually thinking about the customer journey. So don't just put a game on Steam, for example. Actually think about how you want your customers to sort of access your game and interact with your game. So an old studio with a few more games under his belt might be looking at using customer testimonials to showcase sort of positive reviews and from existing players. I think that can go down a long way. Live demonstrations, so using live streams and video content to demonstrate gameplay and features. And this one's probably more marketing again, but marketing and sales, but using effective sales funnels. So again, like you don't really sit in front or speak directly to someone who's buying a game, but it's all part of the process to have the relative sales funnels in place so you're maximizing your chances of selling games, basically. So the fourth one is increase transaction value. So there's various ways you can do this, but essentially this is enhancing each sales profitability, maximizing revenue per customer. Naturally, one way would be to obviously increase the sale price of a game. But I know with a lot of the time, a lot of people will buy games on discounts, so sometimes that can be counterintuitive. So really what we're looking at, especially for younger studios, things like upselling opportunities. So offering premium versions or add-ons for your game once it's been launched. Bundle deals, so creating bundles of games, or even adding merchandise perhaps into the purchase of a game. And obviously getting on board then with in-game purchases, introducing microtransactions. So I think obviously we're living in an era where that's very common. But it does mean obviously a younger studio then becomes a much more technical studio, lots of things to deal with. So a more established studio could look at things like providing more exclusive content, perhaps if there's a new game being developed, giving them early access for loyal customers, or even special editions, so releasing a collector's edition of a popular game perhaps. The fifth one is increased transaction frequency. Now, obviously, someone is just going to buy one game once, okay? But I think if you're looking to grow a business or grow your studio, it's looking beyond a customer buying the game. That technically, the customer is sort of buying the studio in a sense that they might not be aligned with that studio, but if they buy one game and they love it, they're going to keep buying more. So that's how that kind of works with gaming. That makes sense. But essentially it's encouraging repeat purchases, increasing lifetime value of each customer. So my favourite game of all time is Monkey Island. So when the latest Monkey Island came out a couple of years, but I think it was during COVID, I was on that because the last one was back in the 90s. I would consider myself a lifetime customer of Monkey Island. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one to navigate with games because obviously games take a long time. You know, you're not going to have hundreds of games of one title, but what have I done here? What we can do though is look at ways of, even if it's not necessarily purchasing the game, it's interacting with those customers. So when the next game comes out, you know, they're kind of in your pocket. So an early stage studio might look at seasonal events, for example. So organising some kind of event that boosts engagement, or you've got in-game rewards. They could be free. They should be free, I guess. Rewarding players for frequent logins and continuous play. An older studio, or a more established one, sorry, should perhaps be looking at maybe membership programs with exclusive benefits. They could be free, they could be chargeable. Regular content updates, we sort of touched upon that in another one. But again, community engagement, so maintaining an active and engaging community to foster long-term player loyalty. I think it's easier with a more established studio because the trust is already there. So we're on to the last two now, which is reducing some of your costs, right? So this is on the sort of other side. Now, reducing costs does obviously affect your profitability. Your profitability goes up, but it also frees up cash. If you can find ways to reduce cost of sales, then obviously lowering expenses, you know, will improve your profit margins. So a young and up-and-coming studio might look at digital distribution only. So not really doing anything that's physical, other than maybe some merchandise perhaps. Or using more efficient direct marketing. I think with the advent of things like ChatGPT, you don't have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of a marketing agency now to hopefully it's not marketing agency in the room, to do that sort of thing. I think a lot of people are doing that these days. A more established studio might look at sort of bulk purchasing, you know, if they're looking at sort of longer term production, just automating a lot of things, perhaps with sales and marketing, you know, within in your funnels, but mainly outsourcing non-core activities like customer support perhaps. And yeah, by reducing your cost of sales, that can really sort of help your gross profit margin, which is your first sort of gross profit sort of check. And then sort of the lower half then would be reducing your overheads. These are more indirect costs. These are the things you have to pay for. So if you can find ways of better managing things you have to pay for, then you're going to do very well. So this could be things like remote working. So obviously that's been touched upon tonight. So encouraging remote work to save on office space and utilities, lean operations. I think game studios are pretty good with this anyway, but you know, adopting lean operations, so you're minimizing waste and you're not really spending money on unnecessary things. Not all my clients are gaming companies, and some clients are just wasting money on such silly things. But gaming studios tend to be pretty good because, especially if you've got funding to begin with, that's matched funding, isn't it? So technically, you have to toe the line there. And using open source tools, so you know, open source software, reducing costs. I'm doing this a lot in my own business, and it's transforming the work I do for clients. So that could be really good. And then for sort of established studios, one big one could be if you have got an office premise to sort of find ways to lower utility bills, because obviously there's a lot of machines being switched on a daily basis. Obviously don't leave the lights on at night time, which can be quite popular in the cities. But also conducting regular audits. I don't mean like a statutory audit here, I just mean like management accounts. So doing them on a quarterly basis even, just to sort of look at ways that you could really streamline your overheads. Okay, so that's a good way to eliminate inefficiencies there. So that's all of the 7. Just a quick summary really. The main idea about all of those 7 is they might seem really obvious, and I don't want to teach any of you to suck eggs. A lot of those probably were extremely obvious to you, but they might just be ideas in your head. If they're not actually written down or talked about, it's very difficult to put them into practice. Generally, what gets measured gets done, so if these things are being monitored and tracked, you are really setting yourself up for a successful business. So obviously focus on the game development process, but just focus on processes and general systems in your business and you'll do very well. Implementing consistent practices, and this will naturally improve communication, your market understanding of all your customers, and your general business knowledge, and basically applying a smart financial strategy from day one. Obviously day one generally passes for most people before they realise they need to do this from day one, but you can start tomorrow with this. Games cost money, but games can also make a lot of money, so if you do the things right from, like I said, it can be just from tomorrow, it doesn't have to be from day one. You're setting yourself up the best chance of success. And I think that's it. There we are. Thank you.